Yo, thank you so much for checking out this video. My name is Ruslan, hip-hop artist, creative entrepreneur. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire people to live out the king's dream in their life, to basically live out their God-given potential. And so on this video, I'm going to be interviewing one of my good friends, Jeff Morris, who's going to be talking about how he grew his young adults ministry tenfold in a matter of a few years, his heart for diversity, leadership, his struggle with anxiety, and the pressures that pastors feel. So we're super excited about this long form podcast content, man. So if you guys want to see more podcasts happen, I want to see more podcasts happen, hop on over to Patreon, consider joining, consider supporting what we're doing. We're going to be upgrading equipment, all kinds of different stuff. So if you're able to support, we really appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on, and stay tuned for more content. Now here's the interview. King's Dream podcast with one of my favorite people. I don't say that enough to people when they're actually my favorite people, do I, Zach? You're one of my favorite people too. Zach Sparazzo in the in-home studio audience. Jeff Morris, creative, pastor, leader, husband, father, surfer,
Boom.
Vlogger,
All of it.
designer, breeder of fine horses. You do everything. You do everything.
Dang, man.
And you do everything well. I think most people would probably be familiar with you from the Jordan.
Probably, yeah.
The Jordan is, you guys are pulling in what, 650, 700 on every Thursday night?
Thursday night, yeah.
On North Coast Church. You grew that from about 40 people. They used to like play goofy games and like the dodge ball capital of the world. And now it's like one of the most lit young adult ministries.
It's unreal.
In the world. How did you do that? We had Daniel on the vlog and we talked to him and we actually referenced you and your room dynamics. I don't know if you saw that vlog. And he grew his ministry from 0 to 200 in 2 months?
Yeah.
Which is really fast.
It's very fast.
In Gilbert, Arizona, the Mormon capital of the world. Shout out to all the Mormons, because I know y'all be low-key watching this channel. I have no problem with Mormons. I love Mormons. So Daniel followed your model, and you've mentored and you know, came alongside a lot of leaders. How did you do that at North Coast?
Man, it's a complete mixture. It's a total recipe of understanding the culture in which you live in, as well as understanding the culture of the demographic you're trying to reach. Okay. And then putting everything together. A lot of it too is just making, you know, little simple tweaks here and there. It was gaining the trust of staff and gaining the trust of leaders. Because if you don't have the trust of your staff, the trust of your leaders, then it doesn't matter what you're going to try to do, they're not going to follow. So it was really creating a great dynamic between me and my team, and then slowly implementing things, and then creating an atmosphere that people wanted to be in. Atmosphere is huge. Atmosphere is absolutely everything, especially today. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you wanted a cup of coffee, you went to like a crappy cafe somewhere, you know, coffee shop, like Denny's or something. But now, you don't even go to Starbucks anymore because Starbucks isn't even cool.
Starbucks is like Walmart.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. So you want to go to somewhere that has like, you know, rad seating and cool look and all that stuff in order to get your coffee, and then you're going to pay $4 for something that costs 50 cents, but you're going to do it because you want to be in that space, in that place. In that environment. So we really started to create an environment, a space, a place for people that they'd want to come and congregate. And then you have to have quality. You got to have quality design, quality branding. You got to have quality music, quality, and you know, for a ministry, you got to have quality teaching, all of that stuff.
And you guys have always killed it. And I saw Daniel do this. The moment the service was done, there was people walking out with milk and cookies. And I know that sounds cheesy, and you guys have done stuff. I remember the last time I was there, it was like, service is done, boom, there's people with watermelon trays and fruit. Yo, that's genius because it keeps people hanging out longer,
there, and
mingling.
It creates those connections in that community. And that's exactly what you want. But each place is different. And I told Daniel this, I tell anybody, especially if you're in a smaller town or if you're in kind of a rural area that at least has somewhat of a decent population, you can blow up a young adult ministry overnight because there's nothing to compete with. There's nothing there. Like if you create, so one of the things that I did at a town up in Washington where I created a youth ministry there that blew up is because there's nothing to compete with. You know, like there was nothing trying to get, well, here in Southern California, man, like that's why the Jordan is a little bit of an anomaly in what's taking place, because there's a lot going on down here where you can spend your time. And
one of the things I love about the J and I don't know, maybe we could talk. I don't even have to talk detail in it, but like
Yeah.
it's how diverse it is. And
Mm-hmm.
I instantly saw the same thing in Daniel's ministry, was how diverse it was, especially in Gilbert. You know, for Vista Oceanside, I feel like, and for the Papa Church you guys are at,
Sure.
it's a very diverse ministry.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because everybody, you know, we're talking, a lot of people, you know, are on the racial unity thing. Miles is putting out a book called Third Option about racial unity and
Yep.
the church's role. How are you able to bring so many different subcultures together?
Because it's in my heart. It's always in the heart of the leader. I get the opportunity to travel a little bit, speak at other churches, or just consult with other ministries. They always want to try to find out. They always want to hack. You know, like, you know, how do we become more diverse, or how do we reach millennials, or how do we do these things? And ultimately, if it's not in the heart of the pastor, of that leader, it's not going to happen. I've seen so many churches be like, well, we'll be more of a small groups church now, but if it's not in the heart of the leader,
if
it's
the
not,
pastor's not in a small
pastor's not
group.
it. No, it's not going to happen. So like diversity
fact.
has always been something, because the way I was raised and where I was raised and so on and so forth has always been in my heart. So when I came, and the Jordan wasn't necessarily diverse, and it naturally began to happen. It's the way, you know, it's who I speak and who I speak to, and the things that I've gone through, the examples I use. That's really just kind of created that thing. And I think that because we've spoken on different topics, it's let people know that it's okay for them to come and be a part of something that is different.
That's
If
dope.
that makes sense?
No, that totally makes sense. I think you're gonna attract what you are. Right.
Fact.
Single people, pay attention. You're gonna attract what you are. If you're a freaking weirdo, you're gonna attract some weirdos. So this is how life goes. If you're emotional roller coaster, guess who's gonna be wanting to hang out with you?
Well, and the other thing too, man, is your gift dictates your audience.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, define that. Your gift dictates your audience.
So, you know,
I think I know what you mean, but I want to make sure.
You know, it says in Proverbs, it says, you know, you see a man who's skilled in his labor, he will not serve before obscure men, but before kings.
Yeah. I love that verse.
And
your gift will make room for you, right?
And your gift will make room for you. And it's that thing of, if you're gifted at attracting people from all kinds of walks of life, like if that's part of your gift, then that's going to dictate your audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it comes down to everything, man. Like, I don't dress a certain way to attract people. I just dress the way I dress because it's who I am.
It's not super calculated.
It's not super calculated. I don't speak a certain way to attract certain people. It's just who I am.
That's so good. So you've seen, I would say, as a pastor on staff at a church, you've seen success.
Sure.
You've seen multiple ministries blow up. Your personal platform, brand, whatever you call it, is taking off. You're speaking more. You're getting flown out. Recently, and there's been a couple things that I've seen, and we can get specifically into. But the two things recently, a well-known pastor, and this happens like all the time, but a well-known pastor in kind of the Christian hip hop community came out. This dude has a church out in the Northwest, came out and said, man, he's been having an adulterous affair for like a long time, you know? And so he gets sat down, you know? And this is someone that was influential, had a lot of influence in some of the Christian hip hop artists out in that area. And I've seen that repeatedly, right? So you see adultery, you see sexual immorality, you see guys living completely double lives. And then you see the flip side of that, I guess, is now we're seeing a huge epidemic of the mental health side. And in Southern California, and it kind of hit us hard. I know my mind was on it, and I don't know, it was just like, man, this is brutal. Pastor Andrew, out of Chino, I thought of the Ball family because they're from Chino. Recently committed suicide. Pastor's 30 years old, thriving, successful church. And it's not, I'm sure this happens on all degrees, but when you see quote unquote successful people with numbers, with influence, completely just morally drop the ball, you know, that you're like, I would never think that person would go and cheat on their spouse. You know? I would never think that person would deal with mental illness and then commit suicide. Give us some context on why is it so hard to be a pastor, and then maybe tie that in just to epidemic of mental health we're experiencing in the country as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of pressure on pastors, especially the more successful your church is, the more you're in the spotlight. Ministry is the only job where you can get fired because of your morality. Well, maybe not the only job, but it's one of the jobs.
Your morality is directly attached to your
directly attached
income.
to it.
And which is kind of scary if you think about it.
It is, man. The decisions that you make can dictate whether you get a paycheck or not, like on the daily. And then, so you throw that into it, so there's a lot of pressure there. And then you throw in the pressure of everything is rising and falling on your shoulders, meaning the decisions that you make for the church, if it goes well, people pat you on the back. If it doesn't go well, it's all your fault. You know what I mean? When you think about like week in and week out, you're performing for the same audience.
That gotta be brutal. You gotta have a new sermon.
Yeah. So like when you go do a show, you're doing the same songs. Boom, you know when to hit it, you know when to jump, you know when to what to do, and every crowd is like. And if you have a bad crowd or you have a bad show, you don't see them next week. Well, when it's your like, you gotta like top yourself every single week. It feels like, and so there's a lot of pressure there to produce content that's going to wow the masses week in and week out. That on top of that, plus the pressure a lot of times that church boards are putting on their pastors to do certain things. And so all of that, and then people are looking at you as, and a lot of pastors try to become as normal as they can to their congregations by admitting as many failures and whatnot as they can, but still people are looking at you as their guide, as their mentor, as their pastor. That's heavy, and that weighs on you. And if you have any kind of anxiety or any kind of depression, then to admit that shows a weakness. And once people, and people are brutal, especially Christian people, man, they're brutal, and they'll pounce on that weakness, and they'll come after you, and they'll, again, like you have a bad sermon, they're coming after you. Mix all of that stuff together, and then the fact knowing that if I want to step out of ministry, there's not a whole lot I can do. Not only that, if I step out of ministry, I'm seen as a failure for stepping out of ministry. Like, ouch. You just couldn't cut it, huh? You couldn't pastor that church, huh? You couldn't do it. So you step, and not only that, like, what are you gonna do? Like, hey, I'd love to manage Target. I've managed a church before. I don't know, like.
Where do you go from there?
Where do you go from there?
One of the things that I've heard it said, and I've been on staff at the church. My last job before I went full time with the music was I was on staff at the Movement. I was preaching a couple times a year from the main platform. And one of the things that I felt, and I've heard just about every pastor I've talked to about this say, is there's a huge, stigma that like you're not allowed to not be okay. Talk about that a little bit. Like because not only, like you said, you're everybody's mentor, but then if you are going through something, you then cannot be that vulnerable and be like, man, like I'm having a rough month in my marriage. I'm having a rough, you know what I mean? Like it's just a rough stint, a rough season. You're not allowed to not be okay to that congregation. What does that feel like? And how can people, can people support you in that?
Man, I think that for a long time, pastors really painted themselves into that corner. Because when all you do is share from your successes, then your failures are blaringly obvious then when you share from those. One of the things that I've really tried to do is I share from as much of my weaknesses as I can. And I think a lot of it is like millennials and Gen Z and all this stuff coming up, like they like that a little bit more. I think the reality of that hits a lot better. But there still is that pressure to not be okay because, again, people are trusting their lives in your church a lot of times, when ultimately they should be trusting in Jesus, but they put so much into that church. And if you're seen as not okay, well then, I don't know if I should tithe anymore because Pastor Ruslan he's been, him and his wife have been having issues. Is that going to go wrong for the church? I don't know if maybe we shouldn't go here anymore, and so. And
I saw all this, and I wasn't actually ordained as a pastor. Even though I was doing a lot of this stuff. I saw this, I felt all this. Dude, and when there was a crossroads and you were kind of there along with me, and I was like, I'm not going that pastoral route. Like I'm good, because not only is that pressure, the mental side of things, it's just a lot to deal with.
Everyone looks at you, they look at your wife, and they look at your kids. Like they look at your. I was just at a conference in Hawaii. Speaking suffering for Jesus, it's hard, but somebody
in Hawaii.
Somebody had to do it. And I was talking with some of the pastors there, and they talked about how you can tell the health of the pastor by looking at their kids. Like how their kids are behaving, what their kids are doing. And I agree with that to a point. But sometimes kids are just wild.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes kids are just kids.
Sometimes kids are just kids.
Yeah.
But then that's that pressure though
Yep.
that pastor feels, is knowing like, man, people are looking at my kids.
Yeah.
If my daughter gets out of line, well then, man, what is that? You know,
Right.
am I fit to be a pastor?
Oh.
Again, then it goes into now your whole career
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
up in arms, because who knows if he's really fit.
Do you think there's a degree of really successful pastors feeling more pressure and people that are just starting out that have to be bivocational, or do you think it's kind of across the board? Because it seems like if you're struggling just to put food on the table and you're bivocational, that's probably pretty brutal.
Right.
But the flip side is the more successful you become, the more insulated you are, and the more isolated you are, and the more out of relationship you are. You know, so do you think it's kind of like, or is it just across the board? This is just pastors just deal with this on every level.
Well, I think pastors can deal with this on every level, but I think it's definitely different how each pastor deals with it. Like, for me, I'm incredibly relational. You know, like I've got friends in a lot of places, so I want to try to connect with as many people as I can. And I know a lot of these guys that are like, you know, the celebrity pastors right now, they have a good network of people that they're connected to. But if you're going to be open with your issues, you'll be open at this level, or you'll be open at this level, you know?
Yeah.
For those of you guys that aren't watching, like, you know, like low level or high level, you'll be open because that's just who you are.
Yeah.
And so the weight that you feel at each level also depends on who you are and how you deal with things, how you cope.
Yeah.
Like, if you do struggle with depression and anxiety, you're going to feel it at whatever level you're at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the things that, to come full circle and talk about Pastor Andrew out of Chino Hills, who committed suicide, I watched his message, not the one right before, but the one before that.
Yeah.
And he had been back from a sabbatical. His elder board sat him down and they were like, you know, hey, like, you got to chill. You had this gnarly panic attack. So they sat him down. I think he had 4 or 5 months or something on sabbatical. He comes back, he preaches this message about anxiety and depression. I probably deal with anxiety and depression on the level of like every other person.
Yeah,
You know, like
right,
I just kind of feel blue occasionally. Right now I'm on Whole 30. I don't have sugar. I feel very, very blue.
That Whole 30 will wreck you,
Whole
dude.
30, man, no sugar. Ugh. But he taught this message. I don't know if you saw it, but he taught the message, and I watched it. And the thing that is always intriguing to me about mental health is most people, and it's just my experience that I know dealing with mental health issues, aren't taking care of themselves in other areas.
Right.
So then it amplifies and flares up the mental health thing. But hearing him talk about it, he said, hey, a lot of doctors, if they're good doctors, they're gonna tell you to work on the basics. Sleep, you know, getting outside and getting some sun, working out, eating better. And he's like hitting this whole thing on it, killing it in this like mental health. Here's some resources, da 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 da. And then like 2 weeks later, he kills himself. You know, and I'm just kind of like, wow, like if anybody had the answers, it seemed to be this guy. You know, like how does something like that, someone that has the information, someone that is doing the quote unquote right things, someone that maybe is taking their medication or is whatever, like how is this still such an like big thing that people are dealing with?
Right, yeah, exactly. Well, I don't pretend to know his.
Yeah, and neither of us are mental health experts, so we just gotta say that.
Yeah, at all. Having dealt with anxiety and different different mental issues myself over the years, and then again pastoring now for 18 plus years, I think one of the signs when somebody does have mental disorder, and again I'm not speaking to Pastor Andrew's case at all. But what happens a lot of times before people do commit suicide when they have a mental issue is there's a major turnaround and they're happier and like they're on, because they've already kind of resolved in their mind that this is going to end.
Whoa.
And so
that's dark.
Yeah, it's heavy. And so I mean I don't know again if that's in that case, but there is also that thing too of again when you're a pastor and you get on that platform, if you just speak about with authority about anything, people are going to believe you. And people are going to follow you in that, I guess what he covered in that message, there are the basics, take sleep, all that different stuff. But I know as someone with anxiety, it's hard to sleep sometimes. So it's not just like there's something chemically, physically wrong in my body that doesn't let me sleep, that won't let my mind shut off, that I exercise, I'm fit, I do hot yoga. Shout out to hot yoga. I do how I surf, and all those things. But there comes a point for people out there where, especially within the church, where we have to be okay with promoting medication for mental illness.
That was going to be my next segue. So now we're seeing, I did a video on is weed a sin?
Uh-huh.
And I pretty much landed in this like controversial place where I was like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Right.
I think the question to me is like, can you be high and still be sober, as
Sure.
the Bible encourages us to be, you know?
Right, yeah.
And I was like, so I don't know. Then I don't need to find out. Like, I don't smoke. I don't need to find
Yeah,
out.
for sure.
But dude, I got a comment today from someone that was like, and it was so weird because I just had my buddy Fletch over here, who's a Marine veteran, and he deals with, you know, some mental health stuff.
For sure, yeah.
Supports other
PTSD,
people.
all that, yeah.
Other people that deal with mental
Right.
health stuff. And someone in the military, a veteran that said, hey, like, I've been to war, this and this and this happened. I've really been struggling with this weed thing. The doctors actually prescribed it to me to help me deal with my anxiety, and it's been very helpful.
Right.
In dealing with it. And I don't know, you know? And
Yeah,
I was
right,
like,
right.
man, I was like, dude, first of all, like, thank you for serving our country.
Yeah.
Second of
Right.
all, like, your situation is a bit different than like the 21-year-old kid that just wants to get high.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
so
yeah, I got anxiety.
yeah,
and
I
back
got
problems.
anxiety. I got anxiety. Like, this is someone that's been
Yeah,
to war,
yeah.
dealing with something gnarly, and so
Yep.
he said his appetite is back. He's leaving
Yeah.
all these positive things. I was like, man, like, your situation's totally different. So my question for you, I guess, is where does medication become like a good idea? Like, is there a threshold, you know, and medicinal, because now that everyone is like, I'm anxious, and they get prescriptions
yeah,
for
for
weed,
sure, right,
especially
yeah.
in Cali, and I'm sure you're seeing it in the church.
Yeah.
Like, where do you draw that line between, you know, medication to help you versus medication to get you high or just make you a zombie?
Right, no, definitely not to get you high or make you a zombie. But I think it's that thing of like, if a diabetic is, you know, type 1, I think it's type 1, and they can't control it with diet, then they got to take insulin.
Yeah.
So that they can be normal.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And so my thing would be, if you have a mental illness and you need to take whatever it is, Zoloft or whatever, in order to be normal, then take it. You
Yeah.
know, because I wouldn't tell it, you know, a guy with insulin and be like, well, hey man,
Trust God.
just trust God, and
Yeah.
you know, you need to pray more, bro. You just
Yeah.
need to pray more,
Yeah.
and like, because a lot of these medications, they do mess with your mind a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's important to find the right one.
Right.
And for some, it is, because and that's the thing too with each mental illness. There's like I think it's the mental health disorder. Oh gosh. Anyway, they classify. There's over 450 different mental illnesses out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, you know, ranging everything from, you know, depression, bipolar, to like anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, you know, even dementia is considered a mental disorder as you get later in life. 25% of the people, they say, have a mental illness. 50% will develop.
25%
of the
people
population
have some form of mental
illness. They say by the time they're, you know, within their lifetime, about 50% will develop a mental illness.
Jeez.
And so that means there's all different various forms of it too. And so there's not like a across the board, you know, so for like a diabetic, there's insulin and diet. But for someone who's got mental illness, sometimes like your depression or your anxiety is seasonal. And so you need something for a season. Sometimes it's, for me, a lot of times stuff starts popping at night when everything starts getting quiet, my mind starts cruising. You know what I mean? And so
how do you deal with it? Because you described it, you
For
said
sure.
your anxiety kind of gives you an edge. And
It does.
And Kanye, on his new album,
Yeah.
he officially came out as bipolar.
Yeah.
And on his album, he said it's not a mental illness, it's a superpower. That's how he described it.
Yep.
So there's people dealing with bipolar
Yeah.
that see the manic episodes
Right.
as full on. That's their superpower. They get
Yep.
super inspired. They're creative, and they're just going at it.
Yeah.
What is that you said, that anxiety at night? What is that? What does that feel like, and how do you deal with it?
And it's different, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Is that it's different in different days, different seasons. What's going on in my life, the amount of stuff I have going on or don't have going on. But for me, it can throw me into a little bit of a manic of like I can crush. Like sometimes at 11 o'clock at night, I can crush email. You know, or other times I come up with some of my greatest ideas for like a new sermon series,
Yeah.
or you know, a branding for a different ministry,
Yeah.
or whatever that is. Like
Yeah.
in those moments, that
Yeah.
it just comes, because there's always a little bit of a tinge, a little bit of an edge to me
Yeah.
when I walk into a room, partly because I'm, ADD as well.
Yeah.
Like I notice everything.
Yeah.
And so when I walk into a room, I notice everything. I know that not in this room, but like I'd say like that chair is in the wrong place. It's messing with the flow of the way people can walk in here.
Wow.
And there's trash over there. And if somebody walks in and sees that trash, what they're going to think is this place isn't taken care of. So my mind goes like that.
Yeah.
So it can become a superpower.
Yeah.
Which allows me to create atmospheres.
Yeah.
But then it also can become a curse because it messes with my sleep. A lot of mental health, messes with other parts of your body, gut health, and so on and so forth. And so it's like, man, it's all over the place. So for me, I have to, because of, again, when I was a kid, I had it really bad. And so I learned coping mechanisms to deal with it and so like the way anxiety works, just anxiety, is it shoots, like it heightens a level in your body, and then eventually it's going to go down because your body can't run at that rate. So
is
heart
it cortisol that it shoots up, or what is it?
I think it is. I think it's cortisol, and then eventually it's just going to start to correct itself, right? But there's things that you can learn, like to cope with, that where eventually you kind of start to correct it on your own. And so I learned that as a kid. So now as an adult, I know those coping mechanisms, but there are times where I have a medication that's been prescribed to me when it's a little bit too much. I take one of those pills and it just levels me out. Yeah. It levels me out. And
thank you for sharing that, man, because
sure.
I think a lot of people are probably, someone who's a pastor, who's a leader, who's all these great things, just being like, hey, sometimes I have to take medication.
Exactly. Yep. I have
to level me out.
Yep.
That's dope.
I have to, because otherwise I won't sleep that night, or my mind won't shut off, and man, then it's not good.
Jeez. Wow. So the person that's watching this, that's dealing with anxiety, are there any coping mechanisms? Maybe their anxiety is undiagnosed.
Sure.
Maybe they haven't had the opportunity or the chance to. Like, any resources that you can, not resources, but tips that you can give them on how to deal with.
So I think
that.
I'd say if you do have some sort of mental illness, anxiety, depression, bipolar, whatever that is, don't allow that to define you, but it describes you. Okay. And we got to be honest, like that's a part of my personality. Yeah. So there is a description part of it there. And I want to be honest about what I suffer with, but I don't want to now label myself with that and take on all this social crap that comes with it. Yep. So I'll say, I suffer with anxiety, a little bit OCD, and ADD. Again, superpowers at sometimes, and not at others when I can't let something go. Yep. And so I think that just a shift right there in your thinking will help. But then meditation is big, and meditation is biblical. And I think a lot of times if you're in the Christian world, you're like, well, I'm not supposed to meditate because meditate is Eastern religion. But I mean, even in Joshua 1:8, that Joshua is told to meditate on God's word. A word, like meditation isn't a religious thing; it's a culture thing. It is what it is. To your doctor, talk to a psychologist, or psychiatrist, talk to somebody and get medicated. And medication is biblical. Paul tells Timothy to take wine for his stomach. I think to
take the edge off.
Just take
hey, man, drink a little wine, take the edge off. Exactly. Someone's going to see that and be like, so you're saying I could smoke a little weed and take the edge
take that edge off?
It deals with anxiety.
But that's what I'd say is that if you're gonna go the route of marijuana, talk to your doctor and have him say, you know what, that will be the best route for you. Knowing what like the different ailments that you struggle with, maybe it is lack of appetite, maybe it's all these different deals, then here's the deal and here's the right milligrams. Because like when I was in high school, you just smoked. You didn't know, you just knew it was a good strain, it was good. But like now they can break it down into this amount and this gummy or this, So you're getting enough to where it isn't necessarily getting you high. There's a difference, within a THC with whether it's indica or I don't know, indica and whatever, but one's definitely more body, one's more heads.
Sativa.
Yeah,
Indica and sativa. I did my research with marijuana smokers. The sativa is the upper. I've actually looked into sativa marijuana tea because I'm like, all right,
Okay.
like I'm not gonna smoke it because
Sure.
I'm just not. I'm not gonna take an edible because that's gonna blow me away. But what is a marijuana tea? And there's people that swear by the sativas in the morning that it's mixed into their tea.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, the clarity, the focus, all that kind of. Anybody's tried sativa marijuana tea?
But then there's the CBD oil or the CBD that then helps with like different ailments in your body. And you're like, so I mean, talking to your doctor to figure that out. Also talking to your there's different deals with Zoloft or Xanax and all these different things and what they do to you. Some heighten certain things in your brain. So you go to your doctor and you tell them all of your symptoms, and that way you can get the right prescription, the right medication for it. And again, it's not a bad thing. So I would say like coping mechanisms would be first. Like, can you control it, which is some prayer, some meditation. Breathing is a big one, diaphragmatic breathing. I've
been telling Levi that at all. We'll be wrestling and he'll kind of like freak out because I get him in a move, and I'll be like, just breathe. Like breathe and get out of it.
Get out of it. Well, the diaphragmatic breathing, where you're breathing in through your diaphragm slowly and you're holding your breath, will slow your heart rate. So it changes your body chemistry. Your breath will change your body chemistry. And so doing that, I mean, that's where meditation comes into play a lot of times.
That's good. Just the basics.
Just the basics. And I think too, just knowing that other people have this.
Yes.
And this is the thing that nobody's talking about. Like nobody, I mean, it's becoming more talked about, but I mean, if 1 in 4 people you meet has some sort of mental illness.
Would you say before going and getting a prescription, would you say maybe, and this is what I don't know, not a mental health expert, I just keep putting that out there.
Again, me neither.
Maybe looking at someone's wellness activity level, right? If someone is sitting there up until 3 a.m. every night playing video games, eating crap, you know what I mean? They're dealing with anxiety, like how about, hey, try some of the regular things before you jump out the window.
I would definitely try to do things as organic as you can at first. Whether like with diet, with exercise, with stuff like that, because again, you're not getting sleep, that's gonna affect your behavior. All of that stuff comes into play. So I would think, if meditation and prayer isn't working, and that's when you've exhausted those things,
then kind of escalates to the next step.
Then I would go to the next step. And just again, with any other physical ailment, like if you're having back problems, they're gonna go, okay, go to physical therapy. And okay, you've been doing that didn't work. You've been doing yoga, that didn't work. So maybe it's time to look at surgery now.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think it's the same thing when it comes to the mental stuff.
Any final words, maybe someone that has had the suicidal thoughts, like anything you could speak into that and just the level of, I guess, encouragement to someone that's dealt with it? Because clearly that doesn't discriminate regardless of how successful you are, how poor you are. That when that creeps in, it seems like, man, it'll just kind of come out of nowhere, and before you know it, you're completely immersed. And that seems like the best case scenario for someone, which is a very, like you said, like, and then all of a sudden they seem hopeful for a minute. And then they actually go through with it. Like, what advice or just like final words of encouragement?
Final words of encouragement would be like, one, you're not alone. And other people struggle with this, and don't think that you're all by yourself in this. 2, I'd say that don't give up on God's plan and purpose for your life this early, because he wants to use you. And when you look in Scripture, you see examples of people that suffered with mental illness that God still used in powerful ways.
You said David was probably bipolar.
David was probably bipolar. And a lot of experts, when they read through the Psalms and they just read through 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and Chronicles, they go, man,
he's all over the place.
He's all over the place. I mean, this guy's got high highs, he's got low lows. He's kind of wild in his thoughts sometimes, wild in his actions sometimes, but still massively used by God. You look at Jeremiah. He was the weeping prophet. And in Jeremiah chapter 20, he says that he hates his life and his call. But still, God used him in powerful ways to impact other people. Elijah gets so depressed, and he goes to commit suicide. And it goes and basically sits under a tree and is just going to die.
Wow.
Like that was a way of Hebrew suicide.
Whoa.
And that's in 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 4. And God comes in and says, no, and takes care of him. And so I think that but that's, again, we don't talk about that in Scripture, that no, man, like if you have mental health issues, that's okay. God can still use you. God still wants to use you. I say this, that in Isaiah chapter 41, verse 13, he says that, "For I am the Lord, your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you."
Amen.
It ain't over. It's not done. Keep going. God's got you.
Amen. And if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts,
let somebody know.
Let somebody know. Reach out to a safe person.
Yes.
There's a suicide prevention hotline. I'll leave that in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Shout out to the Patreon. Make sure you guys are following Jeff Moores.
At Jeff Moores.
At Jeff Moores on Instagram. I'll tag that all up. And stay tuned because he has some cool stuff. We'll be launching some YouTube stuff very soon.
Soon,
man.
yeah.
So super
Getting out there.
excited.
Perfect.
All right. Peace, y'all.
Thanks.